Hello and welcome to the Resident Evil Outbreak Lone Wolf speedrun. We did an online speedrun commentary before, and now I'm going to actually break down the Lone Wolf run, which, by the name of it, is obviously just going through all of Resident Evil Outbreak by yourself with no AI or any online teammates. This is going to be on very hard mode, and I can to break this entire thing down just because we're going to be going through this at breakneck pace, and there's a lot to cover. So let's get started. So we're going to begin with the first level. You might have noticed that we are kind of jumping levels here instead of just starting from the beginning. And it's mainly because even though in Lone Wolf, compared to online, which there's a lot less, there's actually no item sets for items and whatnot, so that part of RNG is gone. The one thing that remains though is puzzle RNG. So at the moment, we have 5315 for this scenario, which is going to be a code that we're using for a keypad later. And there's 3 different possible codes you can get. One of them being the absolute worst, which I like to dub as 555. Just because of how many inputs, it takes a little too long, and for how fast and what timing that this scenario has, it tends to be a run killer. So we try to at least get either the best code, 8211, or 5315. Now anyways, we're going to have a looming enemy throughout the course of this scenario in the form of Leechman. Now, he's not so dangerous if you know what you're doing. The only thing though is that he has a range attack and also a grab attack that can actually put you in bleed, which is a mechanic pretty specific to this game, where it puts you into danger speed whilst bleeding. And bleeding actually has a hidden mechanic here too, because the Leechman loves blood. And because of that, you have some blood packs you could put down that will attract him to a room for a while. Or, say a person is bleeding, what ends up happening is the Leechman is way more likely to enter that room where the person is bleeding at and target them specifically. So, it's definitely something to not go through, especially in casual play. It's a bit harrowing when it happens. But anyways, we got to see our NPC companion get destroyed by Leechman. It's really unfortunate for him. His name was Hirsch. Just a swell guy. He's just trying to get out of here. Anyways, we're gonna go and grab a key card downstairs on the first floor. And you might have noticed the locale is a bit familiar for those that are fans of the original Resident Evil 3. This is the hospital, the one from the segment with Carlos. You are basically going through this before they show up. The timeline for Outbreak is a bit strange. It's you have instances where it seems like the survivors are here before Leon and Claire or Jill has entered the area. So you actually have some parts of areas in the game that are kind of left either untouched by what they've done in terms of their actions in the games, or actually in a different state than before they show up, which is really cool. Mainly because this game takes place a lot in Raccoon City. There is one level, not in this file, but in the sequel file too, where you actually are running around the Arclight Forest for one level. But in this one, it's just mainly taking place in Raccoon City with some familiar locations and a lot of new ones. Anyways, we got the key card, and we're gonna go and grab a key that we need to grab for a boat. So the lore for this scenario is that the survivors ended up holding up the hospital only to get surrounded by zombies outside. So it's practically a no-go to go outside. So they need to find another way out. Now, this is the hospital in which, you know, with the Resident Evil 3 remake, they made a lot more blatant as to what kind of ulterior motives were occurring here. This, however, kind of is I wouldn't say it's subtle, but it is different in regards to it. There is a sewer tunnel for some reason that goes underneath this hospital, and we're talking a long sewer tunnel with a boat that has a padlock on it. Now, we need to get rid of the padlock just so we can get access to the boat, because there is no way we're gonna wade through that entire sewer system by ourselves. So we're grabbing the padlock key and we're gonna make our way down. Now the only issue is that Unfortunately, our good fellow Harsh, he actually has the way out to get into that room. And unfortunately, the leech man has killed him and turned him into, well, another leech man, which is actually a pretty unique mechanic for this scenario if you're playing online or with AI teammates. Any character that dies in this scenario turns into a leech man. So you end up having to deal with that sort of problem if someone dies or yeah, just dies. Now, we're going to do the code here. Now, you're going to see here why it's a little timed here. Just because at this point in the run, it is down consistently to a point where you're almost always going to run into Leech Man in that room. And your best bet is to have one of the first two codes instead of 555, because 555 takes a good amount of inputs, and unless you are very fast with it, you're guaranteed to get hit by a Leech Man if he appears in the room. Like, you can get lucky with it and he will try to go for a grab, or he will just, what he usually does, go for a ranged attack and knock you off the keypad. If you get damage whatsoever while inputting codes or anything like that, it will reset the state of that puzzle that you're doing. So now we get to run into the one run killer portion of this, and we get to show a little bit of the unlucky side of Resident Evil Outbreak. Enemies have behavior RNG too, and unfortunately with Leech Man, he's a bit problematic with this because, well, I need him to come into this room as quickly as possible. There is the range of time that he can take to get into this room is from as soon as you enter the room, or he could take upwards to a minute to appear at all in this room. And so he's a easy run killer for this scenario. Gotta watch out for him. Anyways, we use the temperature room to cook alive, or cook the leeches that are on him alive. And we're gonna go and finally make our way out of here with the B2F key that we just got. Now, this boss fight is going to be a little particular, and I'm going to introduce a mechanic that this file has specific to it, called rolling pot shots. Now, each character in this game has their own unique traits. This character that we're playing as you can tell by who he is, it looks like Hunk, but it's actually Kevin. This guy is a RPD officer who has the ability to do pot shots, which is steadying his weapon and getting a guaranteed crit shot out of it. We're going to use this to our advantage with this boss, and we're going to do some rolling pot shots. We're just going to set ourselves up, and now we're just going to alternate the D-pad so that we can consistently maintain those critical shots. And with that, our first boss of the game is dead. Now, it looks really easy here, but I will note that with the online run, due to the fact that you have to deal with lag and also a mechanic called Room Master. If you want to know more about it, you can check out the online commentary run that I did with myself and Mr. Hurricane Chris.
Now I wonder if the normal
it can be a very tough fight as soon as you have those in play.
That's strange.
So we're finished up here, and a little cool thing about those cutscenes is that each character has their own monologues for either during the game with some cutscenes or for the intro or outro of a scenario. It's really cool. There's a lot of details in this game, actually, in regards to the characters you play as. You have a whole cast of survivors to choose from, and each of them have, like I mentioned, their own unique traits. Some of them their own quirks. We just saw Kevin's quirk, which is the fact that he can do pot shots, and we can use it to our advantage and do rolling pot shots with them. We have George, who is, a bit of a caring guy, and also a scientist, in which he can actually make pills for certain items, like taking a green herb and turning it into an antidote for poison, or a hemostat for bleed with a red herb, or a blue herb for some heals if you run out of some. You have who we have here, Yoko, who is, you can't really see here due to the fact that we're playing as one of her character NPCs, Amelia.
Good.
She actually has a backpack which can store pretty much another inventory's worth of items. She's a great character for Wild Things in File 2 just for that alone, since that's a collectathon of metal grabbing. But she actually has something more specific to her too.
Right.
Each character has their own pretty much X button attack or dodge or something of the sort.
Monica?
Kevin can bash enemies down with a charge attack. Same thing with George. Yoko actually has the chance to scurry away from zombies and get more distance between her and whatever it is she's running away from.
I should be more afraid.
And of course there's other characters too. We have Cindy, who we'll be playing later as, in which she actually has an herb case full of herbs. So for those that, you know, want to have a bit of a reassurance when it comes to healing items, that character is the best bet. She actually has a duck dodge for her X button, her X button move. And there's a few other characters too, but we'll get to them in no time. Anyways, we're in the next scenario below freezing point, in which another familiar location. This is the laboratory from Resident Evil 2. Albeit it's a bit cold. And the fact that this place is actually under some sort of weird lockdown because someone turned the temperature all the way down to freezing. So now we're gonna have to deal with that. But first things first, we have a hurdle that we haven't seen just yet, but we do have a hurdle ahead of us that we're having to get some items for. We need to go and head into this area, which, by the way, since we are playing Lone Wolf, the location is pretty static. You do not swap locations in this scenario when you're on Lone Wolf. This is where you'll be dropping at.
Thanks.
Now, online mode actually has RNG with this sort of thing where, depending on when exactly you start the game, the first item set is always going to be the most consistent when you actually start up Outbreak. So below freezing point for online is actually the first scenario we do, just because in regards to where you fall at when you go through that duct in the beginning, you can go through one of few locations that the game decides to plop you in. And we always start the game first with that scenario for online runs just because of that.
Is there no way to open
Now,
this?
we're going to keep going through these halls here. Unfortunately, Yoko doesn't have a fast movement speed. Funny enough, Amelia is the fastest one of the bunch. And we're going to go and grab our next item for this item puzzle that we're having to deal with, quote unquote. We're going to go inside this room here. We're going to be careful with the zombie, because there is a zombie just standing there. Thankfully, sometimes you can just kind of get by without really getting grabbed. And we're just gonna leave the room. Just, leave him to it.
I mustn't give up.
And that's gonna be it for that room.
Yes.
Now we're gonna make our way towards the actual duct. And for those that played Resident Evil 2, you know exactly what lies in the duct right here. It's a pretty big thing that we have to deal with. And first things first, though, we're gonna talk to this guy because he has a first aid. He needs a first aid spray, and we need these for later. Some explosive chemical bottles. And now, would you look at that? It's Plant 42. We're gonna make him a little more docile. Let him, let us pass by giving him a little bit of a, I guess, what looks to be an herbicide. And we're gonna make our way up. Now we can't go any further up, and this is a thing that unfortunately that we have to deal with since we're playing Lone Wolf instead of online. Online puts you and the other person up here. Well, in the case of what I experienced, which is the duo speedrun, playing with only 2 people. We always try and enter this location from the duct in the beginning, because this room has the valve handle, and you absolutely need the valve handle to be able to get past that ladder upwards. So the thing is with Lone Wolf is that there's actually an enemy that's placed in here. Some weird quirky things with how they set up Lone Wolf compared to online. There's a zombie in here, meanwhile online there isn't. And instead of the valve handle being at the panel that I had just passed, it's going to be in this panel over here on the left side of the room. So we had to knock him down so that he doesn't bother us while we're doing this. And hopefully, depending on the positioning here, he's not going to bother us while we put this code in. Which is D580. And it's going to open up a shutter that we're going to need to have open for later. Anyways, we got a little unlucky. The zombie did move fast enough to the door. He can actually open the door for you. Like a kind gentleman. But this time around that didn't happen. Now, we're gonna make our way back over towards the ladder and just climb upwards because, I mean, what else is there to do than to go up? So, we're back in the duct, and we're gonna go and turn this thing.
I should be more afraid.
It'll happen. Yeah. Alright, and now we get to see our looming character for this area, Monica, as Yoko calls her. A little bit of a background on Yoko in just a moment here, but Monica here is going to get a little unlucky. Mainly because, I don't know what made her think that she can just take the tram while the whole place is frozen over. So, unfortunately, she meets a pretty terrible fate in that scene. Now, Yoko, as I just mentioned, she has a bit of a background on this level, and she's actually a pretty important character for this notion, is the fact that she was an umbrella researcher. She actually ended up, well, I guess you could say running away, and kind of being traumatized by what she'd seen to a point where she actually induced amnesia upon herself. Try to repress her memories of her time as a researcher. And during the scenario, as he plays her, which there is a lot of unique dialogue that you can get in certain areas of this game, Yoko here has lots of moments where she's kind of recalling what she has done in this facility. And if you have other characters with you, they can actually respond to how she talks about this place. Whether it's George and how he seems just trusting towards her, or Kevin who tries to be a little reassuring in this section here and tries to say that it isn't exactly, you know, it isn't exactly like it's her fault that this whole thing is happening. Just stuff like that. Little details that this game has that go a long way. Anyways, we got the blowtorch, which is exactly what we needed, and you might have just noticed that we had to put a fingerprint in. Another unique thing about Yoko, since she is an umbrella researcher, or was, she actually has her fingerprint on file. If you didn't play as Yoko here, you would actually have to go and take a detour in which you have to go and head towards a computer to register your fingerprint, in which a extra cutscene will play with a creature that is actually in the duct that we didn't notice. The giant moth-like creature. I like to call her Mothra for that reason. If you had to go and get the fingerprint registered, Mothra will take you in a cutscene back down towards where you just did your fingerprint at, and you know, pretty much you wake up poisoned, in which you then have to free yourself from whatever thing she wrapped you up in, and you know, find a blue herb to get rid of that poison. Since we didn't have to do that and we skipped that entire process, we get to just walk out of here freely. Albeit though there are hunters now on the prowl, and the hunters in this game are actually kind of a bit scary. Mainly because they can run after you like that, and also have a charge attack that could put you in bleed, a leaping attack that can also put you in bleed, and if you're low enough health, potentially use an insta-kill move that literally tears your character to shreds.
What?
Now, we made it. There's a bit of an invisible timer here, which is going to come into play, not here, but later.
Hurry up.
So, each time you do a cutscene, you go through a door, or anything like that during these timers, whether or not they're invisible, they actually do delay the process. Now, thankfully, I said that it was going to come to use later. That was actually me mistaking it with online. My bad. Since we're playing Lone Wolf, this game for Lone Wolf runs and offline runs in general are all run off of in-game time. So we don't have to worry about wasting time when we go through these doors and whatnot, just because the in-game timer does pause during these loading screens, thankfully. Albeit, when we're doing online runs, the timer is done in real time for speedruns. So any second that is lost during cutscenes is a second lost when it comes to the timer, in which you have to wait that extra second or two with that loading screen. And unfortunately, with levels like these, there's a lot of doors to go through. So if you're playing online, it is a must to have someone just stay in one room and let the timer go down. They will be the ones that keep up with the timer whilst the other people are doing what they're needing to do. Now, with the 2-player run, which is where I'm going to recall my experience with online runs with from here on out, we usually have someone wait on the train car while someone is down here grabbing items that we need. We need a shotgun, a deagle, and those bottles that we got earlier from that guy on the ground. I needed a first aid spray. We have, if everything comes to fruition with this boss fight coming up, all these items will be used. Especially since it's just Amelia, who I believe has standard attack power. There are characters that actually have a better attack power than others, in which there's a lot of characters you can play as in this game, each with their own stats, and in the case of File 2, their own starting items. We don't have to really worry about that too much because of Amelia. So we're gonna go and just make our way back up before the timer expires. Now, here's a pretty cool thing about the weapons in this game. The assault rifle, or, well, most two-handed weapons, for whatever reason, with certain characters that run slower than normal speed, if you give them a shotgun, an assault rifle, or some of the other two-handed weapons you can get in this game, they actually run faster, either up to or at regular speed. It's just a strange thing for whatever reason that's in the game, but it's pretty nice to have, especially for later on in the final scenario we'll tackle in this run. So we have about 20 seconds left before the game starts warning us that we're almost out of time, in which we're going to take a little bit of our time here. We want to be a little careful. We don't want to enter too early, and we don't want to enter too late. Just because, well, one, you don't want to miss the tram if you do it too late. And two, we don't want to go in too early because, well, there's zombies in here. And this right here is kind of our safe haven at the moment. So the zombies don't really see us over here, so we can just chill out here. Unfortunately, though, sometimes, and I mean sometimes, you'll have a hunter that just comes in very quickly. This attempt, though, that didn't happen. So we just got to stand there and just stay safe for the rest of that timer.
Wow.
But anyways, we're gonna go and go toe-to-toe against the next boss battle of this game, which is gonna take being in the proper spot to shoot this guy, because if I am too close, he will smack me. If I'm too far, well, I might end up just messing up and having him stumble down. This is the G-Mutant. And it seems that for some reason, even though I hit him here, it just didn't work out. So we're gonna have to redo our positioning, and now we can just start wailing on him. We want to keep him in this state of being stunned. Unfortunately, I also messed up here and, well, used up all my shotgun shells, in which I should have waited for him to be done. But now we're just gonna use our bottles here. We're kind of getting close here on finishing him off. And since we were a little unlucky with the shots, he did have a chance to get some adds into the map. Thankfully, though, we got a little lucky, and we just had one for the moment. But since we kind of were a little lacking with that first shot, We had to finish him off with a bit of a bash. He had 20 health at that last portion right there. So positioning really matters with that shotgun if you want all those shots to kill him. Thankfully though, we got a little lucky, like this is just saying that. But we did get lucky there, and he had very low health to where we could just finish him off with a few pushes against him. Still an okay run despite that hiccup. Anyways, 2 runs down, 3 more to go. And now we get to go to what I like to say is the most cruel tutorial you can go through in a Resident Evil game. Other than maybe the originals, but I say this because Outbreak scenario. This scenario is when the story of the game begins, of course. It's called Outbreak. This scenario is when the Raccoon City outbreak goes into full swing. The moments before everything goes to shit, pretty much. And pretty much this is where we get introduced to all the characters. Every character that we play as was here in this bar when the outbreak had started. So they form up as a group and just try and survive this whole mess that they're in. This character that we're playing as now is Alyssa, who actually has some mentionings in later Resident Evil games, such as Resident Evil 7. She is a journalist slash investigative reporter, in which she was caught up in the Raccoon City outbreak, and also actually covered the outbreak too, alongside exposing certain things about the ulterior motives of this outbreak. Now, the thing about Outbreak scenario is that it's a very tough scenario. Even for a casual player, this scenario is very tough. There's a good number of things you could do in it alongside some optional things. It's still a great way to get people acquainted with what exactly this game is going to offer, in which the difficulty is there. You also have optional objectives that you could take care of. There was a person at that bar that you might not have seen by the name of Bob, who we can take upstairs and get some unique cutscenes with. Especially if you play with Mark, who is another character in this game that you play as. He's a bigger fellow, a security guy that actually can do more charged up swings with two-handed weapons. But we're going to come up on a pretty cool strat here, just to kind of shift gears here. And we're going to do shutter strat, which normally you have to grab a key for a forklift in this room. But we found out some time ago, this is before I started running the game, that you can actually get the zombie up the stairs here. You know, just push him into that shutter, and he will actually hit the shutter for you. Now, I made that look way easier than it looks. That was probably the first time in a while that I actually got a perfect shutter strat. But we're going to let him wail on the door here, in which this shutter has a lot of health, by the way. It's a bit of a recurring theme here with this scenario, you'll see. And we're going to get a few shots in on it while the zombie's wailing on it, kind of help him out a little. And then we'll just let him walk for a little bit. He might grab us here. Oh, nope. Okay, then we're just going to go. Alright. We're still not done yet. That was a pretty big strat, by the way. That does skip a good amount of time of grabbing a key, grabbing a bottle for said key to unlock, and then going to the forklift, turning it on, and then having to go upwards and crawling through the crawl space that was up there. We don't have to do that, thankfully. We're just gonna now go through the next troubling segment of this scenario. There's a lot like this in this one. There's a lot of ways you can die here. Now, we're gonna go and shoot this fence here, get a few shots in before the zombie gets here. And we're just gonna hope that the bird that just started dive bombing us isn't gonna continue that trend of, going towards us with that. Just gonna, come on, we're gonna climb up here. Got lucky with the zombie, didn't get grabbed. Now, there is a jump here that you must do. The scariest thing about these crows is that they don't really have to peck you to death here. they could just get you right here on this jump, which we succeeded, thankfully. If you mistime that jump, you will end up with your character kind of having to pick themselves up on the ledge, and that leaves you vulnerable for the birds right there. It's preferable in normal play to actually get rid of the birds so you don't get instantly killed by that thing, because if you get hit by one of them on that animation, you have a chance to just fall off and just die. So you don't want that. Anyways, we heard the announcement from the cop below. If we can't get down there, they can't guarantee our safety. We need to get there before the timer ends. Thankfully, the timer is actually forgiving. Well, I say that because we're running through it, but it seems forgiving. And now we get to just go down here and enter the next portion of the run. Hey, Raymond.
You startled me.
Raymond, another character you could play as. He's a Kevin type, actually. But Raymond's going to help us out here and taking care of a pretty unique thing to this difficulty with very hard. So, if you play this game on easy to hard mode, or I believe it's hard mode for online still. I believe hard mode and offline mode replaces them still with scissor tails. But if you play on easy to hard mode online, or offline, depending, you actually just deal with zombies here. If you play on very hard, either offline or online, the enemies are replaced with these scissor tails, in which honestly these are easier to just deal with than the zombies for the next segment coming up. But it's actually pretty cool that they came up with stuff like this for very hard. There's a good number of changes that do occur when you play on this difficulty, so the replayability is definitely there for this game in terms of difficulty and also character interactions. Also their story bits too. Now, I was hoping that we would be able to push this car all the way, but we got unlucky here, and the scissor tails just, well, Raymond just didn't help us out with the scissor tails. So now we just get to wait on these guys, and we're good. We literally had 2 pushes left on that. Oh man. So now we need to get out of here because, well, they're getting closer. We gotta go. And so now we enter the recurring theme of the scenario. So we had to deal with a door earlier with Shutter Strat. Now we get to deal with another door boss. Albeit here, we have Raymond to shoot the door for us. Still, we want to help him out because it still takes a while for that door to get open. And any time wasted is time wasted. So we got pretty lucky here. We got 2 scissor tails that decided to just climb the walls, which of course the zombies can't do that if you were to have them here. They will just literally charge you at a moment's notice. So it's what makes this scenario preferable to have the scissor tails while walking around in. Just because, well, instances like this, and also the fact that they're easier to dodge than zombies, fortunately. Just that you just don't want to get tackled by them or stung by them, just because if you get hit by their pincers, they will poison you with them. If you get tackled and sent to the ground by one, there is a chance that they could put you in bleed. So these guys are still very threatening if you're not being careful with them. Unfortunately, we have one little guy that was being uncooperative, but we're just gonna get a few more shots in, and I think we should be just about done with this room here. This is probably the luckiest I've seen this room in a very long time, by the way, just with 3 of them on the walls, not even moving from it. And look at that, we have all 4 of them now on a wall. The insanity of the RNG here. You don't see this often. But alright, it seems that we might not be able to get more out of this as Raymond finishes shooting the door down. Now, a really cool thing is that you can see they actually went and took the time to replace the zombies in these cutscenes with the scissor tails themselves. Even more so to the point where even the CG cutscene coming up here replaces the zombies with the scissor tails too. They actually have their own animations during the CG scene. So cool that they actually did something like that. But anyways, we're gonna burn these scissor tails, you know, get them out of here. And of course we left a fiery inferno, so we gotta jump down and get the heck out of here before we get blown up. And that's it for that section of Outbreak. At this point here, this scenario is free game. There's no looming threat or anything like that, so we're just gonna go and make our way up to the surface, and hopefully we can find some more survivors or an officer to get us out of here. So, a little bit more of a background on this game. This game came out, I believe this is actually before or after remake. 2003 was this game's release. And the thing that made this game pretty damn unique, as you can see here, is that it's maybe other than maybe Resident Evil Survivor. I'm not too sure. I can't recall right here, so correct me if I'm wrong. But this game was the first of the Resident Evil series, maybe outside of Code Veronica, to have fully 3D environments. The thing too is that this was also the first online Resident Evil game.
The highway is too dangerous.
And as you can see here with how the game is done and formatted, it's basically as if you're playing a classic Resident Evil game with some updated movement and controls, as you can tell by how the movement's been so far in this run. And lets you play with 3 other friends of yours. Albeit there's no voice chat, you have to communicate through ad-libs, as you can see I've been spamming throughout the course of this run. This game, you could say, was a bit of a pioneer when it comes to ad-libbing. But, anyways, we come up on one of our first dilemmas here, in which we could just leave, which we're gonna do. But there is a cutscene that occurs right there where you have some officers struggling to blow up that part of the road where there's a massive horde of zombies at. You can help them out, get the detonator assembled, and blow up the zombies. Or, you could just do what I'm doing here, and just leave. Which is a lot faster, of course. So we're just leaving like cowards, and we're just gonna leave the officers to deal with themselves. Anyways, that is it for Outbreak scenario. That was probably a pretty damn good Outbreak scenario, just because of what occurred during that one. Usually that run is very rough, and it looked a lot easier than it did when attempting that scenario all these years. But anyways, we're gonna come up on a bit of a freebie scenario. I say freebie, but it doesn't mean that you can't just go about it lazily. You can still get put into bleed and it's over. So that's still something to keep note of. But this is a bit of a freebie scenario just because it's the shortest one alongside the Hive and is a bit more straightforward when it comes to what you have to do. So first things first, we skipped the intro, but we had some firefighters here. One of them accidentally didn't make it. Well, accidentally. One of them didn't make it. Sorry. And, well, there's a bit of a unique thing with this scenario is in the fact that there's actually a lot of optional areas in this one that you can explore. This one has an optional objective where you can collect some firefighter tags and get a little extra cutscene for it at the end. But we're not going to do that here because it takes detouring and whatnot, and we can't exactly do that. So we're just going to go the straightforward route, which is, well, the first problem being that our RNG was pretty abysmal here. We're doing some puzzles here in which we have to flick the switch on some paintings. Now, we got the short end of the stick here and got the 4 change, which, depending on which version of the game that you're playing, whether it's the US version or the Japanese version, which is what we're playing, the Japanese one. This is the one that actually lets the online mode function properly. The US version just can't allow it, just because of certain facets of it. But there is the possibility of having either a 1 change, a 2 change, a 3 or 4 change, or in the case of the US version, which was later found out, unfortunately it took someone having to dig around instead of someone just, well, instead of sharing notes with runs. Unfortunately, we kind of had this one fact here kept as a secret for some time. But eventually someone took the time to go into the US version of the game and run the scenario to the ground to test this theory out. But funny enough, the US version has some more differences when it comes to puzzle solutions. This one being that there is a chance that you can just run up towards the room here for the puzzle and just have the puzzle be completed already, which is what we, well, of course, called the 0 change. We thought this was a mythical thing that just wasn't possible at all and took so many attempts to get done, but it was actually exclusive to the US version of the game, which is not the game that's ran normally for Outbreak. Usually submissions are done with the Japanese version of the game, so that was a heck of a revelation when it was found out that it was exclusive to it, albeit it was a bit of a sour one. But anyways, we're gonna just keep going here, go through the security office, which is kind of blocked off because, well, we just don't have a jewel that we need. More RE quirkiness when it comes to puzzles, and how do you even explain them? How do you explain them being there? But we need to take a detour. We need to go and find the red jewel for that thing. So we're gonna go and head downstairs. And you might have noticed that there was a door smoking. It's Hellfire, so of course you gotta be careful with some doors. You know what they say when it comes to fire safety: test doorknobs, make sure that they're not just, you know, hot as heck, and avoid the ones that are. Because in this game, if you were to open up one of those smoky doors, you'll be met with a fiery inferno that will most likely put you down to danger. So it's not something to take lightly. But anyways, now we are in the northwest passageway, and we're gonna go and grab the silver key. Now, another weird quirk of this lone wolf run compared to online is that they put a zombie in here. Just a little bit of a headache. Just gotta do a pot shot, knock him down on the ground. Pretty useful tech right there with Kevin. Any pot shots that he does for most enemies will knock him down or stun them, so it gives them a chance to run around them. Anyways, we're just gonna leave now. We got the silver key, and there is another thing that we need to do, which is get the emergency power on.
Rock and roll.
Well, actually, more get the auxiliary power that is exclusive to a ladder in the room that we need to get into on. So here we are, the power supply. We're gonna go and just do this puzzle real quick. Unfortunately, I kind of had to wing it here on this solution. There's actually there is ways of doing that puzzle with fewer inputs, but it just couldn't come to mind at the moment. So I had to, take a few more inputs to get it done, but we got it done. And we're gonna leave. Unfortunately, we didn't get graced by the liquor there. There is a chance the liquor can actually hit you while you're doing the unlock animation, and save you just a little tiny fraction of a second with that. There's more potential strats of things like that where you can get damaged by a zombie, or in the same frame attack and also quote unquote get grabbed by the zombie, which then lets you almost immediately move afterwards. It's just weird stuff like that that you don't normally see during a run, but it does happen at times. I believe that second thing does not happen in this attempt, unfortunately. I'd love to show that, but it's kind of hard to actually make that happen. It's a very frame perfect very frame perfect animation. But anyways, we're gonna go and get out of here. We got the red jewel, which is for some reason sitting on that tree thing. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. But we're gonna go and head back downstairs now. We're gonna head back towards the security room where we saw that bust at. That's where we're gonna put the jewel in. And I'm gonna go a little ahead here of the run and mention that this next boss fight coming up is gonna be another instance of rolling pot shots. Now, with online, there's another thing we didn't mention, in that most, if not all, of the bosses have extra health with the with online mode.
Help me,
So
please! Help me, please!
we get to have a bit of an easier time with this boss here, but it doesn't mean that you can't technically one cycle this boss in both modes. So
Give it a rest.
rolling pot shots here, you need to be on point with your shots, because any slowness when it comes to doing a shot could potentially just lock you out of getting a shot in and just have it not count. So we're gonna go stand here behind on this vent cover, do the rolling pot shots, and as you can see, only takes 3 shots. If you're playing online mode, it actually takes another shot or 2 to knock her down. And now we're gonna leave. That was the suspended, by the way, the boss. It's just basically what looks to be a human that is,
That was
well,
close.
I guess in terms of the infection, I guess either one, they lasted long enough to start becoming a licker, or maybe they were just already becoming a licker and still was in the process of fully becoming one. So, a bit of a weird enemy, that one. Now, we finally made it to the final scenario. Decisions. And this one is the longest one of the bunch. We're gonna have a lot to do in this scenario, mainly because it's just me going through the entire area. Now, this locale, just like Hellfire, is completely new. This is other than the parking lot here. Just a little familiar looking. For Outbreak, of course. File 2. This new locale is the Raccoon University, in which there's some strange things going on here. And in that parking garage, we didn't get to see it, but in that parking garage, George, who we just saw go through the door on the right there, gets a tip-off from a old colleague of his by the name of Peter Jenkins. He tips off George that there is something vital at the something vital that he needs to tell him when it comes to the virus and whatnot. So George decides, take him and take him and the group over to the university, see what's up. Albeit the university is quite quiet and empty, and Peter's nowhere to be found. So we need to go and look for him. We do know that his study, according to George, is downstairs in some weird room that he has that's kind of locked for whatever reason. So we need to go and grab some jewels that will help us open up that door. We got the red jewel, and now we're gonna go make our way up. I did mention that we were gonna play Cindy earlier during this run. I was mistaken. This attempt of the run, we're actually doing something different. Normally we run through this as Cindy, but it seems as if playing as Cindy is kind of a moot point here, when you have Carl, aka Kevin, who has a large health pool, a very large health pool for that matter, if the RNG was kind to you with the health, and also has not only full movement speed, but also just slightly more damage than regular Kevin. So pretty damn good character to have for this part. Anyways, instead of solving the puzzle with Cindy, which we will go into the room where the blue jewel is at, and that actually lets you play a piano, we're gonna go and pull a thread here, which is the normal strat, which We actually did some cool dodging right there with the zombies.
What the hell is that?
And we're gonna go now and grab the blue jewel. But if you're playing as Cindy in this, either in casual play or during a speedrun, you can just bypass that whole thing, and you know, with dealing with the zombies, and just play the piano that's in this room. She actually can play the piano, and playing the piano still solves the puzzle. Anyways, we're gonna go and head on back to the main lobby of the university. So
Rock and roll.
let's go and dodge these zombies. Make our way back downstairs.
Yeah.
This scenario has a good amount going on. Fortunately, at least since we're not doing it as a duo here or doing it as an online speedrun, it's easier to break down. But if you were to do this as an online speedrun, after this part here of the scenario in which you find Peter, this is when the scenario opens up. In which, at that point, a lot of people here, why did I say a lot, but the group that you might have, or in the case of speedrunning, maybe as a duo or as a group, there's a lot of things that you must do in this scenario that people can split up for. This scenario is a hard splitting up scenario, just because there's a lot of rooms to go through already. Either you could tackle it as, you know, just, you know, pair up, go through those areas with said person, or tackle it alone. But there is so much risk when it comes to this scenario that it's a pretty daunting task to go and do all this stuff yourself. And with Lone Wolf, that's exactly how we're going to have to do it. First things first. Let's get that elevator unlocked. And for those that have wondered how exactly we're knowing these passwords, and just like some of the Resident Evil games, for speedrunning, there is a speedrun tracker you can use for this game that, you know, that gives you the enemy health, door health, and also what RNG you've gotten in the form of what a code is or what another puzzle solution can be. But anyways, we're gonna go over to the pier and grab a key card that's just sitting on here. It's a pretty nice view. Enjoy the view. And normally, when we're playing as a duo, we actually run through this part. Mainly because we want to activate a cutscene, and also because in terms of routing, it's just a better way to go about it. But since we're doing Lone Wolf, we're going to tackle the route a lot differently than we would as an online group or duo. We're going to first head down through the sewer system. After grabbing that key card, of course. Because where we're going afterwards, we're not going to be able to grab that key card again, and we need that key card for a door later. So we're going to go through here, and, well, as you can see, really weird that we have a sewer system this massive.
We have to go.
Alright, we're going to go and, yeah, bait that zombie. Climb up. If you don't bait that zombie, you're pretty much guaranteed to get knocked off the ladder, which they can do that to you, by the way. And also that zombie, dodge that zombie. I gave him a little push on purpose for a reason. And it's mainly because when you go through doors, it is very, very, very unlikely that zombies and whatnot can actually get an attack or grab in when you're just walking out the door. So it's a little nice thing to have, just so that you don't just walk out and then just get grabbed after a certain moment. But alright, we're gonna go and grab the key here for a door we gotta unlock. Now, this is where we get introduced finally to one of the OG BOWs from the original games, and that is the Hunter Gammas. These guys are not as bad as the regular hunters, thankfully.
Yes.
But they can still instantly kill you if you're low enough health. Mainly because they have an attack that basically tries to swallow your character whole. Now, if you have enough health, you can actually survive that. Both in and outside of water. Which you notice that there's a Hunter Gamma in the water. But like I said, if you have a low enough health, if it tries to swallow you whole with orange caution or danger, you are instantly killed and swallowed whole by it. So, even though they're not as bad as the regular hunters, they are still pretty deadly if you're being really sloppy with it. So, just a thing to preface there. Anyways, we gotta go unlock this door right here. Oh, which is unlocking doors, really.
Yeah.
I apologize for the yawning, by the way. We're gonna go through this door here and get a door unlocked. And of course, there's some Hunter Gammas in this room. Why wouldn't there be? Thankfully, we can just kind of avoid them a little bit and just kind of leave. Now, I'm gonna try here to move, and during that scene, there are some moments like that where you can still move during camera changes like that. So we try to take advantage of that sometimes, either to knock us out of that camera change real quick with getting hit by somebody, or just what I was trying to do there was to get a head start on it. We're gonna have to come back here later, by the way, but we're gonna have to take a detour to get back there just because of the door. So we're gonna go and do that.
What's the rush?
Anyways, now that that door is unlocked, we can go and make our way back. We are done with this area for the time being. And we're gonna go and do something else entirely different. Well, I say entirely different, but I mean it's more running around, if anything. But anyways, we're gonna dodge these zombies. Thankfully, this zombie is a bit dumb at the moment. He usually gives you enough time to get down the ladder unless he's either right in front of the ladder, or if you didn't bait him and somehow got lucky, he might be able to just, quickly hit you off the ladder. But alright, we're back up to the P2F passage elevator. And we're gonna go and make our way down to the next part of the scenario. We'll come back to this part in a bit with the with that door being unlocked. But we got another floor to go through. So downwards to B4F. And well, for those that are not a fan of spiders, spider warning. But we got some spiders to deal with. I'm gonna go and bait the spider so that he didn't jump over towards the stairs. It's all right though. We're gonna go and just run past the spiders, and hopefully this one we can bait. All right, cool. And we're gonna go and go past them and into the old subway area. There's this whole subway area down here for whatever reason, almost as if they're doing something diabolical around here. But we're gonna go on ahead and head through the tunnel, and well, okay, you might notice what's on the right there, but we'll get back to that in a moment. We're gonna go into the south car real quick and grab the assault rifle, which is what we're gonna need to break open the door. This game does allow you the ability to break open a good chunk of doors that normally, when it comes to it, you might have to have someone like Alyssa lockpick open, or maybe find a quote-unquote key for it. And I say quote-unquote because there's only very few doors in this game that actually let you do that if they require a key. Even then, it's mainly just bypassing it with lockpicking or whatnot. You can't really, bash them open. But at least this door here, you can take the assault rifle, which you can go over here and shoot open. We're gonna kick this zombie. Hopefully he gives us a time of day and lets us shoot this open in time. did happen, but at least he didn't grab us. He grabbed us this time. But we got the door open. And now, this part here is very scary. And it's the reason why we're doing it in this order. Because we just went through what people like to dub Murder Hall for a good reason. But it's not technically Murder Hall until you activate a certain cutscene that we haven't done yet. I'll mention which one it is when we get to it, but rest assured, if someone were to be an unfortunate soul down here and have one of their buddies activate said cutscene, either while you're doing the power puzzle, which the result of that would be the zombies can instantly bust that door open right there and then just make it an absolute nightmare to get the puzzle done. Or, in the case of this area over here, there's only 3 zombies in here at the moment. That one and these 2 over here that are coming up. Now, if you're the unlucky soul down here that had their friend pull the cutscene up, there is 5 zombies that end up appearing here. Or if you just take too long in that area, there's some zombies that bust through glass. But the cutscene is usually the one that screws people over mostly. If that were to occur, Murder Hall instantly becomes Murder Hall. Because that ladder is your only way out.
Rock and roll.
And if you have that many zombies on you, chances are you're probably going to get knocked down that ladder multiple times. And or possibly die down there with them. But anyways, we went past it, we made it. And now we're in still what is technically a run-killing portion here. Albeit we're playing as Carl, so it's a little more forgiving thanks to our health pool. But as you can see here, it didn't seem bad at first, but of course it seemed like something was going on because look at this giant beehive. Or, well, more like this giant wasp nest. The characters call them bees, but they're actually, well, as you can see, they're hornets. But, we're just gonna keep running through this. We keep running around in circles in this elevator. That is literally all we can do until we can get to the top. If you get stung by them, you will get poisoned. You can also get knocked down by them. So it's just something to keep note with these guys. These guys are really pesky. And we should be out right now. Yep. Okay. And we're out. We are going to head over here and grab this jewel and grab it. The thing about that, I said jewel. The thing. Oh man, jeez. That vial right there. That is actually going to be something that we need for a very important item. And it's very important that we get these items. Did I say jewel? I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna go and head on out. We are finally done with the 4th floor. We don't need to go back down to the basement floor. We're gonna go. Oh man, these 9mm are useless.
These 9mm
Hold
are
on.
useless. Almost got him. Hold on.
B4F is done.
Calm down.
Also,
Must give me a
cameo from Nikolai over here. He's doing his thing. And we're gonna watch these guys get obliterated. Well, actually not watch them get obliterated, but they get obliterated. Just trust me on that. But we finally made it. That door that was beside me when I walked out of there, that is the door from the pier. So if you're to run this as an online group or as a duo, someone will go through that door and activate the cutscene. And it is very vital if someone is downstairs in that portion with the power supply room that they are informed of that, because if they either pull ahead and either go through a door load screen while someone activates a cutscene, they will be stuck in that cutscene and it's basically run over since the person has to sit and watch it. Or, like I mentioned with the whole Murder Hall thing, if that cutscene activates before the person is done with the power puzzle or is done unlocking the door, it becomes an absolute nightmare to get done and get out of. So, that cutscene has a lot of importance to it. Anyways, we are now dealing with the tyrant of this scenario, the looming enemy, aka Thanatos. We're gonna go and strike him with some electricity. Good timing on that. That's actually harder than it looks. And we got the next part, the T-Blood. Now, I guess I can give some background for this scenario now that we're this far into it. But you're here because other than what Peter informed George of in the beginning, there is actually a chance that a cure can be manufactured here, known as the Daylight. We need to get this cure manufactured and out of the city if we possibly can, so we can synthesize more of this and maybe be able to repel back whatever the hell is happening to this city.
Yes.
Well, we know for a fact already what it is at this point in the game. It's Umbrella. They're the ones, of course, causing issues for the city. They're the ones responsible. But remember that door we got unlocked earlier with the control pad? Well, we're finally getting to that part. So
We have to go.
the route for Lone Wolf kind of necessitates us to take the detour, just because if we were to go through here first, we would just waste time then having to go back, head to B4F and whatnot. And in terms of how you leave this area, it's a lot quicker to get to the third floor. Yeah, it's a lot quicker to get to the third floor when you do this set first. Or when you do this last.
Never.
We almost got grabbed by the Hunter Gamma there. Thankfully, like I said, since we are in fine, it won't actually kill us, but just, you know, let's not waste time here. And now we need to get out of here. Now, the P base, which is what we grabbed, or the sealed reagent case. There is a reagent case you can grab here. The only issue is that the case is leaking and you can't take this with you.
Yeah.
But since we get the sealed reagent
give it
case,
a
we can get
rest.
it. And now we have the P base.
Yes.
Oh man, we got a little unlucky with the zombie there. Now we have all three ingredients to synthesize the Daylight. Let's go and hound up to the third floor and get that done. A little bit of a mistiming there with the zombie. It happens, especially since you can't really see him when they're outside of frame like that. And now we get to take a trip back through this area once more. After going through this area, we are basically done with the basement floors. We are not coming down here anymore after this. We're basically running close to the home stretch of this scenario and the home stretch of this game speedrun. But alright, we're gonna go and get this cure manufactured. This run, just to say, while we have some downtime here, I think I've explained as much as I can at this point for the scenario so far. This run is pretty difficult. Very difficult. It is along the lines of Resident Evil 3 in terms of its difficulty and how random it can get. Albeit online is a lot more random than Lone Wolf. At least Lone Wolf here, the item sets are predictable because they never change.
Aye.
And stuff like enemy having more health, that's not a thing in this. But
Yes.
it takes a lot to get this run right. There's a good number of things you gotta hope for it to go right.
Please help! Please
And
help!
this entire run, albeit with the exception of a few portions, is a run that you never feel safe with. And it's still going to be the case coming up here. We run into the perpetrator behind this tyrant that's running around.
I have been monitoring your progress from here. I am grateful for your assistance. Daylight
Daylight is it. And now, unfortunately, our guy here is going to get taken care of by Nikolai. He knew a little too much. He'd done a little too much. At that point in the game, if you were not aware enough of how Umbrella was responsible for this mess, that guy basically tells you that yes, it was Umbrella's fault that this whole city has plunged into the bowels of hell. But, alright. Now we're at the point where we just have to play the waiting game and get some reagents generated. When you take the daylight, and I never mentioned this, you may have seen a gauge pop up on the bottom right corner every now and then, either when I'm in the menus, you know, my inventory, or whilst we're running around. This game has a virus gauge. The only other game I can think of that has something of the sort would be Operation Raccoon City. Albeit this one actually has more... Well, they both kind of operate almost the same, I'd say. Albeit, instead of the infection in, you know, the infection in Operation Raccoon City, an outbreak, it acts as a sort of pseudo timer. You cannot last a scenario indefinitely. Even if you do not get hit, you cannot last indefinitely in a scenario. Each character has their own virus gauge rate, in which some actually have their virus gauge go up slowly, some have them go up quicker. Or, in the case of certain characters, there are characters that make it a challenge to get scenarios done with said character because their virus gauge rate is off the charts. For example, Mr. Green, a stick figure character. There's a group of stick figure characters that you can play as, and they all each have like very extreme ends to them. Maybe one or two of them having more of a all around or just, you know, fully stat boosted sort of thing. Mr. Green is one of them, and his character, he's definitely got one of the highest virus gauge rates, in which even if you do not get hit, you have a solid 40 minutes to get a scenario done before you succumb and become a zombie. The survivors in this game are infected from the get-go.
No.
I don't remember exactly why. I have to believe that it was because of the water being tainted thanks to the rats. The infected rats, I mean. But I could be wrong with that.
Shit.
Either way, they all got infected when they departed that bar in the beginning of the game. And the daylight is the one thing that will save them. There are 3 endings you can get here. Actually, 4. And I'll talk about that 4th option after these first 3. But the first one is your good ending, your regular good ending, in which you survive, you take the daylight, but you do not take an extra daylight with you. Thus, a cure not being able to be synthesized, and what basically amounts to pretty much what happened with Umbrella being covered up. If you were to take the daylight, of course, there's a lot more hopeful. A cure can be made, and it's a lot less gloomy times occurring afterwards. The third one is you don't take the daylight whatsoever, and you do not have one in your inventory, because if you have one in your inventory, the game will automatically take it if you haven't already at that point in the game. If you do not have a daylight whatsoever in your inventory and you do not cure yourself of the T-virus, you will end up as a zombie in the ending. It's the bad ending, quote unquote. And then there's the good plus ending, which at that point, it's, you know, it's pretty obvious what it is. You take the daylight and also cure yourself, and things are all good. I feel like I repeated myself there. But anyways, the fourth ending, and which is the more unique and replayable facet of this game somewhat, like I mentioned, that every, character that you can play as in this game has their own unique monologues at the end of scenarios or during cutscenes. They'll have different reactions or responses during them. They also have pairing endings you can do. If you're playing online or with AI in this game, you can choose to have two survivors depending on the pairing, because it has to be specific pairings of characters. You can have two characters leave without taking the daylight whatsoever. No daylight in the inventory, no daylight taken. They will have their own unique ending where they're basically seen pretty much living out what they did after the helicopter left together. Whether it's Kevin being stuck with Jim, Mark and David, who is another character I didn't mention, David being a mechanic, both of them finding a tank, fixing it up, and going to town on the zombies as the bombs drop and blow up the city. Alyssa and Yoko, in which they both decide, since they're not able to leave, that they will find a way to still get the word out on what Umbrella has done and find some way still to get it out before the bombs get to them. George and Cindy, in which they share a tender moment at the end over here, pretty much overlooking the city before things end. And I think that's about it for unique cutscenes. At least the ones I can remember off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a lot of pairing endings like that, and they're really good endings, honestly. They're either really cool or just really like a really great way of just sealing the character's fate and whatnot, since you basically prevented them from being able to leave.
What should I do? Shit.
But anyways, we're coming up on the end of this run here. Even though we're still kind of like not done yet, I still want to thank you guys for those that sat down and watched this run. This run took a very long time to get successful, at least in a way to where I can show you guys exactly how a run could go. I didn't want to, as much as it's ideal to show you guys a run that is through and through top notch, no mistakes, I want to show this kind of run because it would not do the speedrun justice if I just showed you what a perfect run of this game can go. It would be great to show it, but honestly, it's not what I want to show. This run is not for the faint of heart. Just like Resident Evil 3, the original, it is very tough. This game, alone casually, you will die a lot in. Playing this, doing this speedrun on very hard is a pretty monumental task that took a lot of work to get to at least getting successful. And so, I really appreciate it. But anyways, we're coming up on the end here. We're not done just yet. We have 2 bosses to go through, quote unquote. And I think you might have an idea of who it might be. Anyways, we got the assault rifle. We need the assault rifle for a shed that we need to open up here for this boss fight. You can defeat this enemy on raw damage alone. You can do it without the rocket launcher. It's possible. But we're not going to do that because I'd rather actually, be able to succeed. So we're going to open this shed up. Unfortunately, Thanatos is a little unkind when it comes to this. So you kind of have to get him to, leave you alone sometimes. So we're going to get him to leap over here. And then we're going to go back and keep shooting it. Yeah, this is a very, very harrowing part here. Alright. And the shed is open and it reveals a rocket launcher. So now we're going to have to... Uh-oh. Now we need to just get a good shot in on him. And that's it for this first part of the fight. Alright. that fight, even though it's simple as to what you need to do, just because of the way that the Thanatos kind of goes and starts messing with you the entire time, it's pretty easy to just get put in danger because of him. But he kind of was a little forgiving this time around. And we made it, but now we're gonna have to go and finish him off here. I got a lot of daylight for a reason. Mainly because, just like earlier, you can still defeat him on raw damage. You can. But it's just a lot faster to take this on pull shooter, in which we're going to fit a daylight in here and take care of him. And that's it for Outbreak, File 1. That is the entire game on Lone Wolf very hard. I thank you guys so much for watching this speedrun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it just like the online run. And, well, we get to just sit back here and watch the ending. But if you guys would like to speedrun this game, there is a Outbreak speedrunning Discord. I will have it linked in the description. Things like the speedrun tracker and tools and whatnot, they will be over there on the Discord, ready for you to, to get up and running. And there's also some runners that still run this game that are more than happy to at least lend a hand and help out either with setup for the game, which this game, unfortunately, when you're speedrunning it online, must be ran through an emulator. You can run it on original hardware, from what I know, albeit it takes a bit more of a process to get running. So it's just more ideal to run it off PCSX2. But the setup for this game has been a lot easier than it used to be, so it's a lot more welcoming for people that are wanting to enjoy this game, and I highly recommend it, especially with friends, because it is a fantastic game. I cannot recommend it more, especially for people that love the classic Resident Evil games. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this run. Stay classy, and hope to see you guys soon with some more speedruns.